Florida has passed new legislation that basically puts squatters in the crosshairs of the federal government and law enforcement. Make sure y'all get y'all likes up. Make sure y'all pin it, hit the Tej Hanley, and then tap into the Patreon pin to the top of the chat, y'all. Tap into the Patreon pin to the top of the chat. Florida, y'all. Let's get to it.
Imagine going on vacation and coming home to find people living there and refusing to leave. Well, that's called squatting, and believe it or not, when it happens, it's really hard to evict the squatters. Well, not anymore. A new state law will make the process much easier for property owners. Ari Yatzer joins us live from Opelika to explain the issue. Ari.
Well, Juwan, it's almost unheard of for a bill to pass through the Florida legislature, both the House and the Senate, with unanimous support. Everyone from both parties agreeing that something had to be done about squatting. And today, Governor DeSantis signed that bill into law.
Bill 5, drug fired, and officers down.
Police ended up in a shootout with a squatter in that Southwest Miami-Dade incident. And at this home in Miami, occupied illegally by squatters, they found a dead body last summer.
Someone broke into the house, they changed the lock, and they stay there like they own the property.
Marie Javier owns the house. She was having it renovated as a rental when squatters took over.
So they stayed in the property.
She was having it renovated as a rental when...
Oh, that ain't Maria. That's her sister.
The property.
Marie Javier owns the house. She was having it renovated as a rental when squatters took over.
So they stayed in the property like for 2 months.
That's because once squatters move in, getting them out has been a civil matter, not a criminal case, so it took time.
Squatting is a criminal matter. You are trespassing, you breaking and entering, you doing all of that. How is squatting not a criminal case? How is it only a civil matter? If somebody breaks into your place, if they trespass on your property, that's criminal. That's not civil.
Up in Jacksonville, Patty Peoples captured her confrontation with squatters on video. It took months to get them evicted because they had a fake deed to the property, and they damaged the home extensively.
Look at that.
It is, quite frankly, one of the most frustrating, unfair experiences and frightening experiences of my life. The burden of proof was on me.
You assume in America, if you purchase a home and own a residence, that's your residence.
Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bipartisan anti-squatting bill today. It allows police to immediately remove squatters if they have broken in, if they've refused to leave, and if they're not a current or former tenant involved in a legal dispute.
Thank you.
You are not going to be able to commandeer somebody's private property and expect to get away with it. We are in the state of Florida ending the squatter scam.
So finally, there's been a state, and I think that this needs to be rolled out nationwide, but finally there's a state that stands up and says, hey, listen, you can't go into nobody else's property without and just take over their property and think that you have a right to it. That never should have been a thing. Squatters should never have rights. Illegal migrants should not have rights. All of these people are getting rights. Diversity, that's the real diversity, equity, and inclusion right there. Nobody should have rights to be able to do something on somebody else's property and go in and change the locks. Nobody. This is basic common sense and basic common knowledge.
Once and for all.
Shout out to Florida.
So how often does squatting actually happen? Well, there are no stats on it that I could find, either nationally or statewide. But recently, Miami-Dade Police and the Broward County Property Appraiser's Office told my colleague Amy Viteri that cases are on the rise. So this new law is a tool for law enforcement and for property owners to fight back. We're live in Opelika. Ari Yatzer, NBC6 News.
Let me see something really quickly. Give me 1 second, because I know he did an interview on Fox News.
All right, so the issue of squatting now has been on the rise all across the country. That's where people take over vacant homes, they rent a property and never leave. Can you imagine? You own a property, you can't get rid of somebody that's in your house. Oftentimes, it could take the property owners months or even years to get the squatters thrown out. Well, now the state of Florida is taking action. Governor Ron DeSantis just signed legislation that gives police the right to remove squatters as soon as they are found.
What other states have really egregious squatters' rights laws? Who has the worst squatters' rights laws inside the United States of America? Is it New York?
And makes it a felony to do more than $1,000 worth of damage to a home while squatting. Take a look at this.
Well, today in the state of Florida, we say very simply, what passes muster in New York and California is not passing muster here. You are not going to be able to commandeer somebody's private property and expect to get away with it. We are in the state of Florida ending the squatter scam once and for all.
And it is a scam. I know somebody in New York, 4.5 years, a squatter stayed in somebody else's house. Now, the governor of Florida also recently signed a bill banning any children in the state under the age of 14 from having a social media account. After years of research has now revealed the serious dangers that these online platforms, years of research under the age of 14 from having also recently signed a bill banning any children in the state under the age of 14 from having a social media account.
Interesting. I didn't know anything about that. This is squatters' rights by state. According to the World Population Review, Arkansas, after 7 years, squatters can claim a home that isn't there. However, they must not sneak in and around the place unless an owner tries to evict them. They eventually take over that property. What? Financial rules also apply, such as having to pay property taxes. Hold on. One person per property only typically applies to squatters attempting to claim land in adverse possession can be divided among more than one person. California, squatters can claim property after having lived in it continuously for 5 years. During this time, the trespassing person must have paid property taxes. They also need to make improvements on the property, and the owner has to know they are there without trying to conceal their presence. The owner must not have tried to evict them either. Florida, anyone that sees and occupies a property without an owner consent is a squatter. Well, Florida actually changed that. Montana, 5 years, claimed a title to the real estate. One squatter. That one squatter must be the only one living there for that period. They must not hide, and the owner must know they're occupying a space. Wow. Seven continuous years in Tennessee, 7 years in Utah, 3 years in Arizona, 20 years in Delaware, 15 in Connecticut, 5 in Montana. You got to stay there for 15 years in Michigan. This is crazy. This is insane. Jesus Christ. This is not right. This is just not right. This don't even make sense.
After years of research has now revealed the serious dangers that these online platforms are posing to our kids. Anyway, joining us now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, great to have you. You know, I doubt when you got into politics that you ever imagined a day where you'd be hearing story after story after story of, people just commandeering other people's homes and then the courts protecting them. I know a case in New York. It went on 4.5 years before they were finally legally allowed to take back their home. Is this America?
Well,
this doesn't sound like the
ridiculous.
America I know. What?
No, Sean. And I mean, you think about things like, this idea of
Somebody
squatting
say,
when
do I still want to do real estate? Man, I done been in real estate since 2024. 14 is 10. 9. Over 15 years. What are you talking about? Do I still want to do real estate? Oh, ain't nobody coming to my properties. I ain't worried about it.
Americans were settling like the Old West, you'd go, you didn't know who owned it, there weren't records. So if people started a community there, then someone came 6 or 7 years later and claimed it was theirs, well, that was different. It's an adverse possession. It was never intended that you could just go into some subdivision and break into a house and start living there, and then all of a sudden have all these rights vested. In New York, there was a case, and it was reported, where the homeowner went when someone had taken over her house, and the police did not evict the squatters. The police ended up arresting the homeowner. What kind of a country is that? And so, like on so many issues, what New York does, what California does, Florida will do the opposite. And so the squatter scam ends today with our legislation. And it's important because, Sean, now being a Florida resident, we've got...
You said one of your haters about to come squat at one of your spots. I don't want to say what happened, but good luck. Good luck with that. Have at it. Do it. I dare you. I dare you. Come on through. Come on, Clevis.
Got people that will be here for 7 months of the year, and then they'll go to Michigan or New York or even Canada. So what? You come back after the summer and someone's in your house, and then they just get to stay there for 6 months?
Yeah, that's
now
crazy.
In Florida, you call up, you fill out a form, sheriff comes, and the sheriff kicks them out of your property.
Shout out to Florida.
Yeah. And by the way, and I've owned property in Florida for over 20 years. Now I am a domiciled resident, permanent resident of Florida. I have my Florida license to prove it if you want to see it, and every other legal thing that I had to do. But it's even worse than that. People can start out, maybe they'll pay the first month's rent, then they'll never pay again. And if you try to kick them out, you're right. The home that you were describing was a case that was over $1 million, that property, and they arrested the homeowner. And I'm thinking to myself, what country is this that they arrest the homeowner and the squatter gets to stay in that person's house? You can't make that up.
Well, and it's like the private property rights, that's the bedrock of a free society and a constitutional republic. And what I think the left is doing, what some of these activists are doing, heck, even the illegal aliens are going on social media and talking about squatting and urging other foreign nationals to come to this country illegally and commandeer property. If we don't have private property rights, we will not have a free society. So it is the bedrock. Florida stands by that. We're proud to do it. And Sean, it's like yet another reason why people are going to choose to flee from the New Yorks and the California and end up coming down here to the Sunshine State.
Shout out to DeSantis for holding it down, making sure that the squatters don't have no place to hide. You can't run, you can't hide to Florida. Florida and Texas is doing some really great things. Shout out to Florida and Texas. Houston is broke, but Florida and Texas in general is doing some really great things.